This presentation provides additional information on how the risk assessment is to be performed and clarity on batch testing.
The API risk analysis should be clear on the depth of raw material information to be taken into account. The risk assessment can be performed through a FMEA Type 2 or through yes or no questionnaire. Risk assessment should be updated whenever additional knowledge is obtained on the API or process change is conducted. Establish a methodology for risk assessment and inform the customer about the outcome. When the risk assessment is updated with new information or process change, such new information should be communicated to the customers accordingly.
The risk assessment should consider raw materials, manufacturing process and reaction conditions, structural study and potential subsequent degradation of the structural fragments, water, cross-contamination and cleaning of equipment, steam, cleaning agents other than solvents, and consumables, gaskets, nitrogen and primary packaging. The risk assessment should consider usage of recovered solvents, nitrosating agents, nitric acid, nitrites, dimethylformamide and/or other materials. Some raw materials can be considered as low risk due to their chemical nature. Such low risk classification should be justified based on scientific literature. The risk assessment should consider conditions forming or suppressing nitrosamines such as temperature, pH, carbon treatment, chemical reduction or excessive alcohol. Purging factors must be assessed. The risk assessment should also consider structural study and potential subsequent degradation of the structural fragments. The risk assessment should consider water used in process. Well water and tap water can contain nitrites and nitrates. Nitrite content is limited on a country-by-country basis. In EU the limits are typically between 0.1 and half a part per million for well water and tap water, as other global countries. If in-house treatment, for example addition of chloramines, is used, the impact on the level of nitrosamines formation should be assessed. For APIs manufactured in countries outside Europe, specific analysis of the nitrite or nitrate content in water should be considered. The level of nitrite in purified water is typically low. Therefore, purified water is considered as a low risk. In particular, steps of water carbon treatment are known to lower the nitrosamine content. On the contrary, ozonation of the water, containing traces of secondary amines, can theoretically lead to formation of nitrosamines. In case of multi-purpose equipment, the potential carryover should be assessed, and if there is a risk it should be mitigated by setting appropriate cleaning limits. Some cleaning solvents such as dimethylformamide should also be considered in the risk assessment. Steam cleaning agents other than solvents and consumables like gaskets should also be considered as applicable, depending on the chemical process involved. Nitrogen should be considered in the risk assessment for presence of nitric oxides for the proper control of nitrogen to prevent the presence of nitric oxides. Particular attention should be paid to the ones with additives such as anti-static packaging or packaging for liquid APIs by assessing potential interactions between packaging and API. The decision to proceed to analytical testing should be taken only when a risk is confirmed. When the risk is confirmed, clear testing strategy should be established. Based on the outcome of the risk assessment, API manufacturing process will determine the need for analytical testing to confirm the presence and content of potential nitrosamine impurities. EDQM provided some of the analytical methods to determine nitrosamines, namely NDMA N-nitrosodimethylamine and NDA-N-nitrosodiethylamine in sartans are provided, which may be suitable for other APIs potentially classified as at risk. These methods can be adjusted based on the requirement, or new methods may be developed. Newly developed analytical methods should be validated. At least 3 consecutive commercial batches of API should be tested to confirm the level of nitrosamines in the API. Whenever values above 30% of the interim limit are confirmed, marketing authorization holder should be informed. API manufacturer should clearly identify the sources of the concerned impurities, to define actions to reduce the values determined and to update the control strategy document accordingly. Theoretical values should be determined, if technically possible. During the confirmatory testing, priority should be provided to the APIs with a theoretical value classified as potentially present and at risk. If the theoretical value is less than 30% of interim limits, no confirmatory testing is required and risk can be classified as negligible. If the theoretical value is greater than 30% of interim limits and less than interim limits, risk may be potentially present. If the theoretical value is greater than interim limits, there is confirmed risk. The risk assessments for API should be prioritized based on higher daily dose taken, long duration of treatment, therapeutic indication, higher number of patients treated. Commercial APIs should be more prioritized than that of APIs used for clinical trials. API manufactured in multi-purpose equipment should be more prioritized than that of manufactured in dedicated equipment. API manufactured in multi-purpose equipment exposed to nitrosating agents. For companies manufacturing APIs, intermediates and RSM, risk assessment for API should be prioritized than intermediates and RSM. APIs still manufactured should be more prioritized than the APIs no longer manufactured but still on the market. APIs sold to markets where risk assessment have already been requested by authorities should be more prioritized than APIs sold to other markets. Knowledge of the likelihood of a risk, based on the chemistry of the process, should be considered. Raw material risk assessments should be prioritized based on regulatory status of the raw material and the associated regulatory file, chemistry of the raw material such as complex process, use of nitrosating agents and amines, type of solvents used, for example recovered in-house or by third party. Number and type of chemical steps between introduction of raw material and final API stages. The evaluation should consider the raw material is used in early or late steps of the API synthesis. If the next steps can purge the impurities or not, and if yes, at which level the impurity can be purged. Type of chemical process is involved and process conditions. The raw material is used in later stages of the API synthesis and no further crystallization is performed. The information from raw material suppliers can also be obtained through questionnaires, which cover chemical process and risk of contamination at the raw material supplier's facility. The questionnaire should include the questions: do you manufacture nitrosamines, amines or sources of amines in the same equipment as those used to manufacture the raw material? Do you use or is there a potential presence of nitrosating agents or amines in your manufacturing process? What is the quality of water used? When the supplier information is not available, quote that raw material as high risk in the API risk assessment, which should be later confirmed either by confirmatory testing or with the information received from supplier. Use scientific knowledge or literature to obtain information. Use alternative source of information from website and audit report. From the risk assessment and the evaluation of the level of the nitrosamine impurities, a specific testing frequency or any other control should be defined to assure that the level of the impurities are under control and below the acceptance limit, across the product life cycle. The option chosen should be fully justified based on scientific principles, analytical data, knowledge on the downstream process and impact on the impurity level. All changes should be handled through change control management procedure. Any proposed process changes, raw materials, suppliers, analytical methods, manufacturing step, etc. and based on the understanding of the manufacturing process, the impact assessment should be conducted. The impact assessment should consider such as, but not limited to, impurities level and the possibility of new impurities be formed either due to side reactions or due to new solvents, reagents, water, etc. Cleaning process, if it is still valid or needs to be adjusted, including composition assessment of cleaning agents. New solvent or reagent or catalyst used and respective supplier qualification with focus on the product origin. Internal use of recovered materials. Based on the result of impact assessment, control strategy should be adjusted to assure process performance and product quality. For more information, refer APIC Guidelines on the assessment on the risk assessment for presence of N-nitrosamines in APIs. Thank you.